Hey, my name is Dustin Silva with Flutes, and in this video I want to share with you the basics of a Native American style flute and what to look for when you receive one in the mail or if you're having any difficulties with its sound. So with a Native American style flute, you have this top block, which is what really makes it a Native American flute. So the main thing for positioning this block when you receive it in the mail is that it could be out of alignment, and you're going to want to bring it back to the best possible location. So the best possible location for my flutes is I have a channel or a nest in here that this top block will need to sit in. Sometimes it can kind of pop out, twist. So you want to slide it, make sure it's in there, and then you want to position it just behind that front hole, where you see a little bit of wood underneath in where that track kind of ends underneath there. It'll be hard to see in the video, but basically just behind the hole and a little bit past the hole where you see a little bit of wood, about a millimeter. So then once you get it positioned, you're going to want to, as a single flute, you can put it in your arm and tighten it. And you're going to want to work towards making your first sounds. Now, when you first receive a flute, you're going to have probably difficulty playing the lower notes because you may have one of the upper notes not fully covered, or upper holes not fully covered, which will cause that lower hand notes to jump up, make really loud squeaks, and sound not so pleasant. So what you want to do if you're having issues playing that is play with this upper hand first, and then work towards playing the bottom hand. And if you find that as soon as you start getting lower and lower on the flute and you have difficulties, definitely there is a finger that is not fully covered. What can be very helpful is looking in a mirror. And when you look in the mirror, you can actually see what hole is not covered. If you kind of shift from left to the right and look and see which hole is not covered, you usually will be able to see a little bit of kind of a dark opening from that hole. So that's kind of the basics of the Native American style flute for my particular flutes. Other flutes, the top block may not have this channel or nest. You're still going to want to position it in the same spot. It can twist left to right then if it doesn't have that channel to kind of position it. So you just make sure that it's kind of straight in line and just behind that front hole, and tighten it as well. And if you're still having difficulties, you can take off this block, blow out your flute because there may be some sort of debris up in this top area. If you've done all those, you should have a clear, nice sounding flute. Now, when you come to the flute and you first want to play the flute, you're going to want to stick to one of the basic scales, which is the minor pentatonic scale. Now, the minor pentatonic scale is a 5-note scale, which when you come to your flute and you cover all your holes, this is the fundamental of the note of the flute. So this is the key of G for this particular flute. And if I take off all my fingers and leave this third hole from the top covered, that is also the G an octave above. And then when you play it, there are 5 notes total. So the way to play it is this third finger from the top needs to stay on at all times. And then all you do is release one finger at a time, going from bottom all the way to the top. And then again, when you go back down, one finger at a time, going all the way down the flute. And it sounds like this. When you're first starting out, you may not have good control over your lung capacity and your breath pressure. So one of the things I like to share for beginners, a lot of times I find that there's a tendency to overblow, and overblowing can also make your flute sound very airy because you're just putting so much air through it, as well as it makes it very loud. It can also make playing these lower notes hard because it may jump a little bit easier to a higher note or a different note that you don't necessarily want. So when you come to it, try and do a medium breath. So you're going to hold back and not blow as hard as you can, but enough that it doesn't sound kind of like muted or struggling. So just a medium breath. And over time, you'll develop a sense for what that feels like. So again, stick with the minor pentatonic. Go up and down, really get that down. And then you can come into a place where you start learning embellishments. And embellishments are kind of all the different flares that you can do to make your flute sound good, such as finger trilling. And finger trilling, the way I like to practice it and also to teach it, is going up and down the minor pentatonic scale, just trilling every one of the fingers. This does two things. It builds muscle memory for your minor pentatonic scale and for trilling every single finger on your flute, so that when you start playing from the heart, when you start just playing freely, you can play the trill wherever in your song. You're not limited because you don't have muscle memory for playing a specific hole with a trill. So I hope that gives you guys a really clear understanding of your flute, how to approach it if you're new to the flute and you get one in the mail. You want to just tighten your block, position it appropriately, make sure all the holes are fully covered, blow with a medium pressure, and you should be off to a really strong start. The last thing I want to cover is drone flutes. And with drone flutes, it's basically the same concept. You just literally have two flutes attached to each other, and it may be in an A-frame style or it may be in this shotgun style. You're going to want to position the blocks again appropriately just behind the sound hole and play it as a single first, ideally. And once you have the single flute down with your minor pentatonic scale, where you're playing all the way up and down the scale without having any squeaks or any wobbles, then bring in your drone. And the drone really is just playing this second flute along with your main flute by blowing in both holes. So on my flutes, I have a little bit of an indentation, allowing you to play the main playing style side independently, fairly easy. And so all you do is just shift over and cover both holes and blow into both. And ideally with these flutes, if they do have 3 drone holes with plugs, you're going to want to just make sure they're nice and tight when you first receive it, so there's no air leaking. And then what you can start doing later on, once you feel comfortable playing the lowest note, is remove one hole and play a different note. And again, you can do that all the way up. To the third hole. And then once you feel really comfortable playing, you can switch your hands. This is the way I like to make these flutes, is with your top hand reaching over and the bottom hand doesn't have to reach over. It makes it a little more challenging because you have to become ambidextrous by switching your hand and then remembering this hand now has to hold this third hole from the top closed while you play your top hand, which was the bottom hand. And then your top hand now becomes the bottom hand, where now it goes all the way up and down versus keeping that third hole from the bottom covered. So when you come to a flute like this and you want to play it, all you need to remember is to play it exactly like your main playing style flute. You're going to basically keep this third hole covered on the main playing side, go up and down with those top fingers. That's all you're going to do. And on this flute, you're just going to go up and down. And what you can do is start combining and moving 2 fingers at the same time on like 1 finger on each hand at the same time. But then you can also move them independently. to get a flute, this is going to be the style, because it gives you a single flute, a double flute with 4 different drone notes, and a harmony style that's similar to a Mayan temple style. So I hope this video was really helpful, gets you on a good head start for your new flute. And I also have a fundamentals course on my website, elementalflutes.com, which goes through all the different, a lot of the different embellishments, how to play a song and how to add the embellishments into your song, and a couple of the different scales. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope you have a beautiful day.